With Avowed's official release just around the corner, and everyone in the gaming community starting to talk about it, I decided to have a look into it. With the game reviews starting to release, I assumed it had, released. And technically, it has. From the trailers and the reviews, it looked pretty good, and I was tempted to give it a go until I noticed that it has two pricing tiers. The standard version, which releases on the 19th of Feb, and the premium edition, which grants you up to 5 days of early access to the game. So if you have the money, it's released for you. For everyone else, well, you should have earned more money, I don't know what to tell you. And to that point, I was at the gym the other day, just finishing up a workout, just doing some cardio on the treadmill, and a thought popped into my head. This early access period is literally just a poor tax on those that can't afford to play the game on the actual release date. The same thing happened a while back with the, at the time, new World of Warcraft expansion, The War Within. They had their 3-day early access period, and it's becoming more and more of a trope that's clearly here to stay. Now, I'm definitely not saying myself or people I know are innocent of buying early access to games. I've done it with both World of Warcraft and Lost Ark when it first released in the West. When my mates and I bought the early access for War Within, Blizzard made more money than they otherwise would have, and we had a great time. So it makes perfect sense why they would do it, and why it's here to stay. My mate even went back to Valdrakken once we hit 80 and started talking shit to those that were still stuck at level 70 about why they weren't in Dornegal, and to be fair, it was fucking hilarious. Now, some of them would have been able to afford the early access, but simply chose not to pay for it, which is completely fair, and everyone's entitled to play the way they want to. But on reflection, I feel bad for everyone that genuinely just couldn't afford the early access edition. They had to look on at everyone else having fun while they were stuck waiting until the early access period was over so that they could then join everyone else. All the while, they were just getting spoiled on all the new story, dungeons, professions, and everything else on social media, with Blizzard themselves posting spoilers before the official release date. For a bit of context on the video, I live in New Zealand, and if you don't know where that is, I don't blame you. We're quite often left off of maps. But we're a small country of 5.2 million people at the bottom of the world. We're known for our meat, dairy, the All Blacks, and James Cameron films. And down here, the standard version of Avowed is currently on sale on Steam for $129.95. And the premium edition is $149.95. I also want to preface this next section by firstly saying this isn't a hit piece on Avowed. The reviews seem to be a bit undecided at the moment, and initial reviews seem to be trending along the lines of it's an okay, but slightly lacking game. This is more to highlight that even gaming, which was once simply a hobby for many, and a way to de-stress after a long day, is quickly becoming a privilege that only the select few can still afford. I was watching another video a little while back, and unfortunately I can't remember which video it was. It may have been an Asmongold one, but if you know which one it was, please let me know and I'll make sure to add it down below. But one thing they mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, was that the $100 mark was a real big break point for most people. The $100 mark changes an item from an everyday item to a premium or luxury item, and you know what? They're 100% correct. Over the last few years, I've seen the standard price of a game in New Zealand go from around $80 to $90 to $110 to $120, and increasingly even more. And the psychology of that change is very real. I find that I do second guess myself on if I actually want insert game name here or not, more and more. And new releases are increasingly just gathering dust on my wish list until they go on a decent discount. Now, I make a decent living at my day job, and I try to minimize my expenses as much as possible without depriving myself entirely. I still rent, I drive an absolute shitbox of a car that I bought off my younger sister when she decided to sell it, and I seldom get takeout or splurge on myself. Outside of that though, I go to the gym and I try to eat well, but even still, I'm currently trimming down and trying to lose a bit of weight, and my grocery bill each week still manages to come to around $150. After my rent and general expenses go out each fortnight, I have around $300 left over if I'm not investing or doing something else with that money. This is definitely more than most for sure, and it allows me to save and invest a little bit, but after all of that, there's still not a massive amount left over. A new game will have to be absolutely amazing for me to even be able to justify spending half of my leftover income on it. And again, that's assuming I choose not to save or invest any of that, so the actual cost of the game is even higher. Even just the PlayStation and Xbox consoles here are pricey. The cheapest PlayStation here is the base edition digital slim model, and that's currently sitting at $769. The Pro version is $1,378, which is legitimately fucked. In terms of consoles, I'm still rocking my PS4, and while I would like to upgrade to a PS5, I'm genuinely struggling to justify spending that much on a console. Assuming I don't spend a penny, and nothing unforeseen happens like the car breaking down or I need to go to the doctors or something, Sony is asking for over 2 months of savings for just the console alone. That's not including a single game. If I then want to use my shiny new console, I have to spend another full week of my time to get the $120+ to then afford one single game that, especially from the AAA space, could be completely unplayable and utter garbage from a technical, story, and gameplay point of view. I am 100% looking at you, Starfield and Dragon Age. And again, this is all on a pretty good income where I do have money left over. But even then, line items like rent won't be going down. My car expenses will never be lower. Groceries only continue to climb, and every week a new company wants me to sign up for a new subscription. My girlfriend and I, we recently did an audit on our subscriptions, and we had Netflix, Disney+, Neon, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium, and Uber One. All of this came to just under $120 a month. After all was said and done, we only kept Netflix, YouTube Premium, and Amazon Prime, which brought it down to around $50 a month. Amazon was lucky that it was only $11, otherwise it would have been gone too. And if we take a look at averages for a second, in December 2024, the average house price in Auckland was $1.21 million. So assuming you just have a casual $242,000 for a 20% deposit, you'll be one of the lucky few that will only be paying $5,736 a month for the mortgage. None of that is including insurance, rates, or general maintenance. And again, this is assuming you even have a cheeky $250,000 at your disposal just lying around. And the average salary as of June 2024 was just shy of $66,000 a year. According to the PAYE calculator, after only contributing 3% to your KiwiSaver, which is the New Zealand version of like a 401k, and assuming you have no student loans, the weekly after-tax income is $989.68. So a house is completely out of the question for the average New Zealander. So looking at rents then, the average rent for a one-bedroom place is $475 a week. So immediately out of the gate, half your income is gone. If we take my food cost for this example, that's another $150. Assuming you fill up your car once a week, rough average of $80, and that's probably on the cheap side, assuming you have a small car. General bills like power, water, internet, and your phone would be around $100 a week, and a general slush fund for miscellaneous things like a gym membership or subscriptions would be roughly another $120. That would leave you with a grand total of $64.68 left over. Now, assuming you're not going to save anything, build up an emergency fund, or invest any money, that $1,378 is starting to look like an unscalable mountain at just over 21 weeks to save up for a console. And that's just the console. You then have to sit there and admire the box for another 2 weeks before you can afford to play a single game on it. And especially in today's gaming landscape, you're really rolling the dice on if a game is actually going to be worth your money or not. There are genuinely only 3 companies that I personally can think of that I would be willing to spend my money on and buy their games at full price. Those being From Software, Larian Studios, and Atlas. All the while, you get to read articles saying that publishers are hoping that GTA 6 will be $100 so that they can justify raising their prices on their broken and unfinished games. The AAA gaming industry really needs to take a look at themselves and start producing better quality games if they want to somehow justify charging these prices for those games. Otherwise, much like myself, their player bases will just continue to dwindle and decline as we as gamers migrate to smaller indie studios where the developers actually have a genuine love and passion for their games. A perfect example of this is a recent review I did on Sheepy, a short adventure. It was a small game, but it was absolutely full of love, and on top of that, it was completely free. Other games like Core Keeper or Vampire Survivor are other great examples of smaller studios just doing a far better job than the industry giants. Like, just look at BioWare. They're on the brink of collapse after releasing shit game after shit game. Ubisoft also producing shit for years, and people are just getting sick of it. I think back to when I was growing up, and the only games that my friends and I would play were League of Legends and World of Warcraft. We'd constantly swap between them, not necessarily because they were good games. Like, they were good games for sure, but because they were cheap and we would get hours of fun out of them. World of Warcraft was around $24 a month, and League of Legends was obviously completely free, and we'd dump hours into them after school was done for the day. But even now, it feels like they aren't even what they used to be, with the 6-month subscription incentives, the Brutosaur mount, the monthly battle passes, the removal of hex chests, and it's just sad to see because gaming is a genuinely great hobby. I've met so many people through games over the years that have become genuine friends, and this is slowly dying for no other reason than corporate greed. Even up to today, until recently, I found myself swapping between only a few games that would actually give me decent value for money. Those being World of Warcraft, which, despite its increased monetization, it's still a staple for me. It usually provides pretty good value, and I usually revisit it every major patch to see what's new. And Stellaris. Every 6 months or so, when they release a new DLC, it just locks me in a vice, and every single time I go back to it, I always manage to squeeze out another 80 to 100 hours of gameplay, which for around $30 every 3 to 4 months, I can easily justify that. But I've also started to branch out. I've obviously just started this YouTube channel, but instead of just playing the latest and greatest game that everyone's talking about, I've instead been playing through my backlog and reviewing older games, which obviously gets 0 views, but it's been genuinely fun. I'm an RPG guy at heart, and I've played games that I wouldn't really have given a chance before, like side-scrollers, platformers, and shooters, and I've been having a genuinely great time with it. I'd also recommend that you do the same, give games that you wouldn't have given a go before a go. With all that said though, keep an eye out for my next review. I hope you enjoyed the video, and maybe consider subscribing and liking the video, and I'll see you in the next one.